Welcome to From Small Towns to Global Stages, a think tank media podcast. Hosted by Dru Daniels, this show explores the journey from local beginnings to global opportunities in the world of events, blending real stories, industry insight, and the human side of building a career. Start small, show up big. Here we go.
Hello, awesome people, and welcome back to From Small Towns to Global Stages. So obviously this is Dru, I'm your host, and today we have Miss Selvis Morales with us. So let's go ahead and dive straight in. I'm super excited. So after some of our conversations, I've learned that Selvis is a solutions architect and she works for a technology company and she's been there for about 4 years now. So with obviously position changes and kind of moving around within the company. So I would assume that most people don't necessarily know what a solutions architect is. So do you mind giving us a brief synopsis of what exactly a solutions architect is?
Sure. So where I work as a solution architect, I pretty much work with our enterprise clients. So a lot of the events that are tier one events, and sometimes with these tier one events, they're highly complex, require a lot of planning, use a lot of technology. They use all the features that our company provides. So anything from registration to on-site printing, lead capture, expo floor plan planning, event apps, all of that. So these events usually require a lot of white glove service and handholding between the tech company and the planner in order to execute the plan and the software to the best possible scenario. So everything seems like seamless on site. So as a solution architect, I'm almost like a middle person. I'm a liaison between the client's planning team and our internal teams. And a lot of times I'm like the through line between the discovery phase when sales is working with the clients, contract pitch. I understand their pain points, potential needs that they might have. And then I work with the project team once they're assigned to make sure that everything is pulled off flawlessly. If any issues come up, I help escalate. I work directly with product as needed. If we hit some limitations, see if we could figure out workarounds and creative ways to execute the things that the client needs in the best way possible through like post event where we debrief, we talk, we see what works, what didn't work to hopefully keep that relationship with that client renewal. So as a solution architect, I almost think of myself as like that point person liaison so that the client stays happy, that their internal teams, I ensure that they talk to each other, make sure everything's going as they need, and then
Right.
get that message through to our teams from product to project team to account team.
Okay, awesome. That was super helpful. And then with that, so now that we kind of have a grasp on what exactly it is that you do now, could you kind of give us a backstory on how you ended up working in these like high-end events and like with this company?
Sure. So way back when I graduated college, originally I was well, my when I graduated college, the plan was to go into film production work. So, because I loved working with teams, long hours, being on set, pre-event production, sorry, pre-film production, all that stuff. I worked in that right out of college, realized it wasn't steady, reliable income.
Right.
And then I kind of like found my way into the nonprofit world in publications. And one thing led to another. Part of the things when you're working in publications, a lot of times these groups have to actually meet in person to actually hash out everything that they need to approve, get to code, all this stuff. So while keeping these committees in the nonprofit doing what they need to do, publish what they needed to publish, I was also booking their events, getting all the things ready, working with F&B, all of that stuff. And that was like my wedge in. And it kind of reminded me a lot of like production work, a
Yeah.
lot of planning, contracts, working with unions, all this stuff kind of married together. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. So like I transitioned in that nonprofit world from like like the publication side to focusing
Yeah.
more on the meetings and events side, and eventually moved up as like a director of their conferences. And I was like
hmm
leading like their global conferences across the US, Mexico, Canada,
Wow.
and started working into like global like conferences, trade shows. And then I lived in Miami at the time. From Miami, I moved to Chicago because I wanted to be in a bigger city, stayed in the nonprofit association world, and then joined another nonprofit that really, really worked a lot with the international events side of things. Did that, loved it. And then wanted to kind of start my own company as like a planner and work with my own like
Yeah.
companies, nonprofits, associations. So I did that for a few years and then
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit.
Right.
And that's kind of like where the events industry went into like a standstill. And then a lot of us in the event industry were like just pivoting. And I pivoted into a project management role in a digital ad agency and was the head of like their project management team. As a project manager, a lot of the skill sets of event planning tie in. It's the same, it's almost like the same playbook that you're working with. A
Okay.
lot of pre-planning, making sure your teams are aligned, staying on top of deadlines, working with contracts, all of these skill sets transitioned over. So I did that for like a year during COVID, and then I missed events. And then an opportunity
Yeah.
work opened up working on the vendor side of things because I was always
Mhm.
on the planning side. So
Right.
that's where I'm in now. I'm working in the vendor side, providing services to the planners, planning teams, and clients.
Awesome. That's cool. It's a big change. I feel like you've had
Yeah,
your hand in like every single aspect of planning. And it's also super funny that you say you missed events. Everybody I've talked to so far, it said the same thing. They're like, I just couldn't stay away. And so I think that's super funny as well. So we're
it is
gonna
addictive.
slowly yeah, that's what I've learned. And coming from like, I'm not in industry yet, but like I do work on different events. And I was like working the day of and that big old adrenaline rush you get and like just like go, go, go. I love it. So I totally get why it would be that way. So, but as we sort of move into our next topic, I wanted to ask you a question regarding like, do you prefer from like all of your experience so far? Do you think you prefer being on the vendor side or would you or did you like kind of the planning
Planning side.
client side?
That is tough. Um, that's a tough question. They both have their pros and cons, I will be honest.
Right.
Um, on the planner side, you do carry a lot of the weight and pressure of executing your events for your stakeholders and your internal teams. There's a lot of pressure. You lose a lot of sleep sometimes, a lot of stress in the job. But like you
Mhm.
said, like that that adrenaline rush of like the day of the event when you're like seeing your meeting room, your trade show space, like come from like empty floors to like come to life to an event space.
Yeah.
It's very thrilling. Over on the vendor side, I like where I am now in my life, it is nicer because you do get to take a step back and you
Okay.
don't have to worry about all the pieces that a planner does and the planning team does. As a planner, you have to think about F&B, AV, registration, database, email campaigns. You have your hands in all the pockets,
Right.
contracting, meeting room. It's a lot. And as a
Hmm.
vendor, you get to just focus on one aspect. Right now, I work
Okay.
with the technology space. So you just got to
Yeah.
hone in and perfect that area. So it depends. Like when I talk to people, I'm almost like, what gives you the biggest thrill? Do you like having your hand in every aspect from start to finish of an event?
Hmm.
Then the planning team is the way for you to go to be like on the planning side. Do you prefer to just focus on one aspect of event planning? Do you love one part of it? Do you love the AV stuff? Do you love like database and integrations and stuff like that? Or do you love the marketing side? Do you love coming up with social media campaigns? If you love one thing, then consider the vendor side because you get to focus on one area and hone in on it and just focus on that on your day to day.
Yeah. Wow. That's helpful too, especially thinking about like the stress of being a planner and versus the difference in like just I'm focused on this and this is my job type deal. So, all right. So we're gonna kind of transition now into like the meat of our episode today about like technology and events, considering you work for a technology company right now. So could you kind of walk us through like a very high level overview of all the aspects of planning technology that would be required for like a large scale event?
Yeah. So It's a lot. It depends. What you have to first take a step back and be like, because
Hmm.
there's different types of events, and they
Yeah.
all require different types of tech. So
Okay.
I would think come at it from the perspective of what tech aligns with my event's strategic goals and my audience. That's the first thing to say, because when you plan for tech, there's all sorts of tech available out there to contract and work
Hmm.
with. But you have to know what tech works for your event's goals and audiences. If
Okay.
your audience is, let's say, it's an older crowd, and like, let's say your audience is like anywhere from like 65 to 80-year olds, maybe an
Hmm.
event app isn't the best technology for you to pursue.
Right.
Maybe you should think about getting translators, AV production with closed caption, more on-site technology that helps them network face to face, because you know that that kind of aligns more with that group. Or
Right.
is your event more like a community thing where it's a younger crowd where you know, okay, event app is a given, but not only that, we're going to go heavy with the social media campaign, and we're going to go
Hmm.
use like buy ads in TikTok, all these things that you would like to know.
Yeah.
So knowing your audience will help you determine what technology to use. And then once you know what technology to use, you can start planning. The first phase is always contracting and then knowing which vendors to use. Always send out RFPs so you get good quotes. Always send more than one. I would say anywhere 2 to 3 to be safe so you could price compare. And then always, always, always get on calls with your vendors and ask all the questions that you need to make sure that that technology actually follows through with what you need. Because
Okay.
sometimes you might hear about a technology and you think it might work a certain way, but once you start asking them, okay, can you do this? Well, what if this? Then you start knowing, oh, this will or won't work for you. So step one
Hmm.
is sending out your quotes, your RFPs, sending out your RFPs, and then meeting with the sales team to make sure that that technology matches with what you think it should do and what it actually does. And
Okay.
then you get nerdy. Once you have your contract in place and your legal
Hmm.
team reviews it, you sign off on it, you get nerdy, and then you start meeting with that vendor and that technology provider, and then hashing out a project timeline. And then marry
Okay.
that with your event planning timeline to make sure that all of the deliverables that they need line up with your deadlines, with your team, to make sure that you give them the assets that they need in order to execute the technology on time and as you expected. And
Okay.
then step 3, always, always, always debrief. At the end
Okay.
of your event, vendors appreciate it too. Like, take all the
Hmm.
notes, what worked, what didn't work, and have an honest conversation with your AV provider and be like, okay, next year, maybe the Wi-Fi crashed out on you and you realize, you know what, we thought we only needed connection for 1,000 people, but everyone brought like 2 cell phones, a corporate one and a personal one, and they ate up all the
Hmm.
bandwidth. So we need to double it up to get the Wi-Fi to connect to 2,000 users as opposed to 1,000. And you use these debrief conversations to hash out what can work, what can be improved next year. That's always critical to help you grow and make your event better the next year.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that was great. I like that you walked us through it all so that way we can kind of bite-sized piece it, all of that. So that was awesome. And then talking a little more about the difference between a larger event and then a smaller event. How does the technology differ, and are the steps the same, or are they just like a little less robust? Like, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah. So to be honest, the difference is always budget. What
Okay.
will your budget allow you to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then that will also then level set of what needs to be done and like the order that things need to get done. So if your
Mm-hmm.
budget's small, you could still use a lot of technology, but maybe you're a little bit savvier with the way that you use it. So with that, I mean like for a big client, high-end client whose budgets are usually really big, they could do
Mm-hmm.
everything. Their stage will look amazing. They will have
Mm-hmm.
all the spotlights, they will have drapes, they will have this, they will have sets. Incredible. If you're a smaller event, you learn how to stretch your budget so that you can still make the set and the AV
Mm-hmm.
production and your event app do what it needs to do, but then you have to kind of like weed out all the excess. So the stage could still look great, but then you learn, okay, maybe I won't use all these spotlights, but I'll learn that if I put a light on a drape, it'll look a certain way, or we'll use like gobos or
Oh,
something to liven up the set.
yeah.
So you learn to stretch the dollar and to really pick the stuff that will give the biggest umph. Did that kind of answer your question, or did you want me to kind
Yeah.
of go into more detail?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So it's almost like you're DIYing. The smaller the budget, you got to think outside the box and be unique and different things like that to make it stretch within the confines of that budget rather than just like a catch-all, I have a larger budget type deal, correct?
Correct. And I've also learned, because when I was a planner, I've lived in that space with the small budgets. And I've also worked with clients with the really big budgets. And I do have to admit, sometimes when you have the smaller budget, those are the events that are most creative. Like they'll come up with the most creative solutions and
Mm-hmm.
do things in like they'll think outside of the box and come up with like a really cool solution to a problem. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, I've noticed that they tend to get more creative, whereas if you're a higher event with a bigger budget, you just kind of throw the kitchen sink at things. And sometimes the
Mm-hmm.
technology will work, won't work. You'll notice sometimes in these surveys, like after the event, a lot of people will, like, let's say I've had like some clients that like they really went all out with the event app and
Mm-hmm.
they invested a lot of money in it, invested a lot of money in the graphics to make it look good. And then in the post-event survey, like maybe half the audience downloaded the event app because their audience wasn't in the age demographic to be interested in having an
Mm.
event app. And it's
Yeah.
like they lost all that money not
Yeah.
knowing who their audience was and like
Mm-hmm.
wisely picking where to invest in the technology. So yeah,
Okay.
and then with the smaller clients with the budgets, they'll know immediately. They'll be like, "Oh, well, that's too expensive. We can't do it." But what if we went about it this way? They tend to be more
Yeah.
creative.
I like that. That's awesome. They're a little scrappy. So
Hmm.
that's so fun. And then I have another question for you. So when it's the day of and technology is all like you've finished all the planning stuff, what makes it a good technology day? Like your event went well with regards to technology, because there is going to be like the struggles of something might crash or something like that. But what means it was a good day?
Yeah, a good day is always a boring day. When you
Okay.
have a boring day, that means nothing went wrong, and those are the best days. So a good day will mean, especially in the AV tech world, your
Hmm.
speakers all showed up on time and actually showed up to rehearsals, and they went through rehearsals.
Okay.
And in rehearsals, you were able to fix, find, correct any potential errors on a slide, on a camera not working, mic not working, like teleprompter not working. You fix all that stuff during rehearsal, so you know that
Hmm.
everything will go smooth the day of. Another thing that is smooth, Wi-Fi is flawless and doesn't
Okay.
crash out, because usually nowadays your registration is connected to Wi-Fi. Your event app needs Wi-Fi to download seamlessly, especially if you have global attendees. A lot of people tend to forget global attendees won't have network in the host country if they're from
Hmm.
abroad, so they will rely on the Wi-Fi to download a lot of the content. And usually, if all the printers are working, that's always good.
Okay.
And yeah, it's all the boring stuff. The cables worked, your equipment arrived. That's always like step one. You show up,
Okay.
all the equipment got there and you found it. That's always a
Good.
success.
That's so funny. It's so funny the little things of like the printing worked and like your equipment arrived, just little things like that that make it successful. So thank you for your time today. This has been such a great inside look into the technology aspects of events, because especially as a student, it's not always something I think about. Like, I need to make sure this goes well, just because you're thinking about all the big picture things. So I think it's been super helpful. And as we wrap up today, I have one final question for you. What is your biggest piece of advice regarding someone that wants to either break into the event industry or into the vendor side or technology or anything like that?
I would say, if possible, volunteer at local events. If you're part of a neighborhood and you have a community or a chamber of commerce that like does a lot of events in a community level, they're always wanting volunteers to help do like block parties in the summer or holiday parties or galas and foundations. Chambers of commerce always offer volunteer opportunities and they always do
Mhm.
events. Volunteer if you're like have an organization that you care about, see if they have any events and volunteer so you could see firsthand events on site. And then also internships are always great.
Mhm.
And what's another one? Like I would say like don't be shy to ask questions. Like
Okay.
if you volunteer, if you intern, always speak up and ask questions
Mhm.
because the only way you learn if this is for you is if you ask questions for people who've been in the industry forever.
Mhm.
So don't be shy of the questions that you ask either,
Okay.
because the faster you learn if it is a good fit for you or not, the better for you. So don't be afraid to ask questions, especially
Mhm.
from peers that have a lot of experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because definitely, as a student breaking in, it can be a little intimidating because you don't want to like interrupt, especially during the day of, just because there's always something to do. So that's definitely great advice, and I definitely appreciate that. So it's been great talking to you about technology and events and how they work together and just the challenges as well as how they're so important to planning the event. So thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And as all of you that are listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode and it brought you a different perspective on events and just helped you realize how important AV is and technology is on events running smoothly. So, as always, have an amazing day and never forget to be the beautiful people that you are. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us on From Small Towns to Global Stages, part of Think Tank Media and Hospitality Nexus, a global human-first platform connecting the hospitality ecosystem in one place, like a career fair that never closes. Watch all episodes at hospitalitynexus.org. Wherever you're starting from, keep going and stay beautiful.